Hi folks, I'm General Manager Tony Mizuko.
And I'm Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Bill Plasko.
We're here to review the articles for the upcoming town meeting on February 4th. Article 1 would place money from free cash into the Cemetary Perpetual Care account. When the town converted its accounting software a few years ago, we realized that money that's supposed to go into the Perpetual Care account had instead gone into the town's general fund and become free cash. So consistent with the state and our auditor's recommendation, we're looking to move that money from free cash back into the Cemetary Perpetual Care Fund. Article 2 would construct a walking path around the Hawes Brook area. The money for this article, approximately $19,000, would come from rideshare funds, which is a state tax that gets levied on Uber and Lyft and other similar rideshare services, which the town is able to access every year. This year our allocation is about $19,000, and we would use those funds towards this project to put a nice trail around the Hawes Brook area. Article 3 would allocate funds from free cash for a classification and a compensation study. A classification and compensation study looks at town positions and what they're paid, how they're compensated, and how they look compared to other similar organizations. The town last did this in 2002, and it also helped develop our personnel system, but the recommendation then was to follow up every 5 years. The town hasn't been able to afford to do it since then. However, now we're looking to do a new classification and compensation study to ensure that employees are paid adequately and fairly according to their peers. Article 4 would allow the Board of Selectmen to sell a small parcel of land adjacent to the Callahan School to a nearby resident. The board would still have to come to an agreement on the price of this property with the nearby resident, but it's effectively part of that resident's parcel as it is and would in no way impact the school operations at the Callahan. The property would have to go through the proper bidding process and the selectmen would have to agree to the price, but it would not impact the schools or our 40B numbers for affordable housing and exempt land total. This article also only authorizes the selectmen to sell the parcel. They may not go ahead and do so if they're not able to reach a price they feel is fair for the town.
Article 5 through 7 are local option statutes that allow us to provide for the largest range, maximum range of abatements available for surviving spouses of senior citizens. And this came about during the operational override campaign, and a number of people, particularly seniors, were concerned that they might have trouble holding on to their homes. We made a pledge to bring every abatement available under state law that the town had not already accepted to town meeting. And that's why we're bringing these forward now, keeping that commitment. Basically, the state law already gives an abatement, but these provide for enhancements to that law that already exists for all towns in the Commonwealth. These have to be accepted by each community, these enhancements. And that takes care of Articles 5 and 6. Article 7 is related, but what it allows for is the Consumer Price Index to increase the values in those laws every year instead of them becoming outdated with inflation over the course of time. Article 8 is similar to the articles we just discussed for surviving spouses of seniors, but it's dedicated to our disabled veterans. And again, it enhances the values or the amount of abatements that are available to qualified veterans and all the different laws that apply to them for abatements. There's one thing that's important in both the senior and the veterans to make clear, that it is possible someone to qualify for more than one of these, but you can only claim one. Typically, obviously, the one that will provide the best relief or the most relief to that individual. Article 9 is a property tax abatement for blind individuals. It increases the local amount in a small manner from $437.50 to the local option increases allowed up to $500. But again, we're trying to make the largest amount of abatements available to all our residents that qualify for these abatements.
Article 10 is our annual appropriation of CPA or Community Preservation Act money. The Community Preservation Act passed several years ago in Norwood and adds an additional surcharge to property taxes to be used for specific types of projects: housing, historic renovation and restoration, and open space. There are a number of projects on the docket this year, including a master plan for the Old Parish Cemetery that would allow the Old Parish Cemetery volunteers in conjunction with the town to have a master plan to lay out the next decade or so of work at the cemetery. There's also a project to do a feasibility study and master plan for the Morse House. So the Morse House is one of our historic assets, would undergo a feasibility study for what work the building needs and the possibility of future use and reuse of the property. There's also a project for the Murphy Field basketball courts to make sure that those courts get rehabilitated. Fairly straightforward project. there's an additional project of a pool assessment that would be funded by the CPA, where we would undergo a study of all the two pools in town and what the usage is and what work both pools need and what the future of both pools in Norwood would be. And finally, is in addition to a pre-existing project, which would be to add to the cost of rehabilitating the Carillon at Town Hall. The CPA committee had approved money about a year ago for the Carillon restoration, and we've come back for additional funds for that project, as historic renovation and restoration projects of this nature are very complicated and very hard to project out exactly what they're going to cost. This would allow that project to continue and make sure that the town's historic Carillon is restored.
Article 15 is on petition of the local commercial property, the Space Center. They would like to seek to amend Chapter 44 of the Act of 2016. That act allowed for additional beer and wine licenses to be available to restaurants in the South Norwood area along Washington Street corridor. This would allow them to go, some of those licenses to be used, if approved by the Board of Selectmen, over at the Space Center as well. So it expands the zone of the licenses that the legislature has already granted to the town of Norwood. Article 18 is also a private petition for an additional liquor license. In this case, it's for a retail license, beer and wine. And the petition is from Rojo Car Wash. They're going to create a new business at their site on Providence Highway. The business is going to be called Cravings on the Go. And if approved by town meeting and the legislature, one additional retail beer and wine license would be available for the selectmen to grant the Cravings for the Go. It will only be able to use at that location. It's never able to be sold or transferred by the selectmen to any other spot in town. And again, that's a private petition. Article 19 has to do with taking care of a financial adjustment that's required by the state in our, what we call our budget overlay account. It's the assessor's overlay, and it's used to offset tax abatements that people file for. During the annual budget, current process, town meeting had planned to set aside $1,040,000, but after the November town meeting was conducted, representatives of the Division of Local Services informed us that we weren't able to use the same estimate we used in preparing this, so this is an adjustment to correct for that action that was taken earlier in the year. Article 20 is to adopt a provision of Chapter 59 of N, Section N of the Massachusetts General Laws. This would allow veterans and their spouses to take part in a program that we have at the town for our seniors at this time. They do some work for the town. In exchange, they get a reduction in the real estate taxes. Right now, it only applies to seniors. We want to adopt this section of the law so we can also make this available to our veterans, and it goes along similar with the exemption clauses that we talked about earlier in the meeting, trying to make everything available that we can to those who may need assistance in holding on to their properties.
Article 21 would adopt a local portion of state statute that would allow us to place liens on properties where they haven't paid a fee or a fine to the town. So an example would be a fine by the building inspector for not building with a permit, or a health department fine for a health violation. Currently, the only way to collect those fines if somebody refuses to is to have to go through the court system to do so, which is not only very ineffective but very costly for the town. This would allow us, when those fees are legitimately levied and not paid, to add them as liens to the property, so that way the taxpayers always recover the value of that fee. Article 22 would adopt a local option surcharge on short-term rentals. This is allowed under state law and is similar to our hotels tax. This would apply to folks renting their properties on sites such as Airbnb or other sites that do short-term rentals. So it applies the same way the hotel tax does. It's a 3% surcharge. It does not apply to regular residential rentals, and it is paid by the user. So this is just an addendum to our hotels tax, and will add to that revenue with this fee. Article 23 would establish a revolving fund for fees from tobacco enforcement. Recently, the state significantly increased the fees charged to a vendor who violates the state or local tobacco rules. The Board of Health would like to make sure that this money goes into a separate account just to fund additional education and enforcement for tobacco and tobacco use. That way we're not looking to make any money off these fees, which may hit businesses hard but are levied by the state, but instead using all of that money to go right back into additional enforcement and education.
Article 24 is intended to change our existing bylaw affecting our permanent building construction committee by modernizing the bylaw to recognize the role of our new facilities department and also to make it act more in function and with the realities of the Massachusetts general laws that have changed regarding project oversight, different requirements. Article 25 has to do with any time there's outstanding bills that for one reason or another were delayed in being received or processed by the town, and we have to go to town meeting and get special permission to make those payments. And this is a placeholder we have every time we have a town meeting practically, so that if we have any bills that have come in, we can take care of them at that time. Requires a 9/10 vote of town meeting.
I want to thank everyone for taking a few minutes to watch this video, and if you have any questions about town meeting, please reach out to the Board of Selectmen or the Town Manager's Office. We'd be more than happy to help, and stay tuned for a live Q&A session on the town meeting articles on January 28th. Thank you, and we hope to see you at town meeting.
We do hope that all town meeting members in particular will take advantages of the special training sessions that are coming up before the town meeting on February 4th. This is our first remote town meeting, so it's a new learning curve for all of us. And the more we work together, we'll be able to have the meeting go smoothly. So again, the meeting will be available to all people in the town, residents of the town who are interested to participate if they contact the town clerk's office at least 48 hours in advance, and town meeting members will get instructions from the town clerk as well. Thank you for your attention.